a lot of folks here in the Nut and Fancy Project subscribe for this type of video. Like I've said before, it's not for everyone. I seek a quality audience with all my videos, but especially for the philosophy videos like this one. Not a pop culture video. Tons of them around. Click to the sidebar, you'll see them everywhere. No. This is meaningful, it's heartfelt, it will be sad, it will be funny, it will be fun. Time will pass very quickly, I guarantee you that. As we talk about my tips for raising what I think will be the awesome daughter. That's right. I'm surprising you again with this subject. Hey, Nut and Fancy, you don't have a daughter. Well, here we go, getting real. You ready? Here comes some sadness. I should have had a daughter. We lost our little girl, Jade, late-term pregnancy. And Mrs. Nut and Fancy had to still deliver Jade, our little girl. There you go. So that happened many years ago. We lost another baby after that, and then we had our youngest son, last suspect. Mrs. Nut and Fancy has a condition called antiphospholipid syndrome, which basically means the body's antibodies attack the placenta while a healthy baby is in there, and the baby basically starves to death. And when Jade died, we didn't know what she had. We didn't know what was going on. And so she was lost before she came into this earth. So I don't have a daughter to raise in this life. You're right. I've often thought about it. If I did, how would I raise Jade, that little girl that we lost? And then the little boy we lost after Jade we named Chase. And so we lost both of those babies. When we're talking late term, we're talking 7-month, term where Mrs. Nut and Fancy had to be induced and gave birth to a dead baby. There's that realness. Sorry, it is what it is, but people will ask the question and I'm going to answer the question. I've often thought since those days, and they were very sad, it was still, is still very sad for us to visit those times. We kind of compartmentalize it in the back of our minds, and sometimes we visit it and it's sad and we cry about it. And in a lot of ways we feel like we got ripped off, that we never did get that daughter. We got 2 wonderful sons. I've done my best to raise them to be awesome sons. How did this subject come to mind? Well, here's the impetus, and this is a little insight to where we are now as a family in the Nut and Fancy clan. Our stage in life, and all the stages in life are so passing, they're fleeting, they don't last that long, so appreciate each one, take advantage of it, reel it in, soak it in, overlook the hardship because it doesn't last forever. My oldest son now, Tactical Doodle, is dating. Seriously dating. He's looking for a steady girlfriend, a fiancée, eventually becoming a wife. So he's dating with purpose. TD is. He's pretty tight-lipped. He does not communicate very well. We have to drag all this out of him. Hey, are you dating? Yeah, I went on a date last night. What? You didn't tell us. So mom and dad, me, Mrs. Nut and Fancy, myself, very interested. We want to know. We love our children. What's going on? What was the girl like? What did you like? What did you not like about her? And little by little, as we've debriefed him on his dating excursions, we come to find out that he's very disheartened, very unmotivated by the quality of girls that he's finding. There you go. Go to his channel, by the way, top of the page, subscribe to it, and I think he's going to make a video on it. I told him, Josie, you need to make a video on it. I have my own thoughts. No, this video isn't all about finding the perfect mate. Some of it's about that because it's a barometer for your process as a parent, as a guardian, raising a little girl into an awesome young lady, into an awesome young woman. Women who embody the attributes we're going to talk about, I guarantee you, will be in great demand by good guys, good dudes that are looking for friendship and companionship for life, a wife for life. And as I look at society as a whole and I see societal messages being sent not being challenged, I see some issues with how girls are being raised, or more importantly, how they're not being raised, how they're just being abandoned in life. Wouldn't you agree that no one's really raising them? They're just kind of pushed off to the side as mom or dad or a single parent goes off and does this, or sometimes just so busy trying to make bills that the little girl at home kind of raises herself. Social media raises her. The internet raises her. Television raises her. Her friends have a great impact on her perceptions and whatever, mores in life or lack thereof. A lot of what I'm going to talk about could easily be applied to boys, raising sons. I've talked a bit about that in some other philosophy videos. So this one is going to concentrate on little girls. By the way, if you have a little girl, it is one of your most precious blessings in life. Treasure it. Reel it in. And I'm really concentrating on talking to dads. Because dads, your relationship with your little girl will form her to an extent you have no appreciation of to this point. I hope one of the things I can do in this video is kind of open your eyes to your amazing impact on your little girl. She needs you in so many different ways. She needs your wisdom, your protection, your counsel, your discipline, your role model, your involvement, your protection, your attention, your love. Your little girl waits for it. And it will form the basis of everything she becomes. If she fails to get a meaningful and healthy relationship with her father, it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of women that have gone through that and they've become very productive, awesome ladies, wives. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but you can give her a head start in life by perhaps integrating these things into your raising your girls. Let me say this. We're going to talk very frankly. I always do. Very honestly. We're going to discuss some things that need to be discussed about how to prepare your children, specifically your daughters, for this world we live in. And you as a father, as a mother too, your approach to these subjects, the honest approach, is integral. Frank discussion. I'm not the expert either. These are just some thoughts. There's lots of smart, wonderful people out there giving advice on how to raise children, and you can look it up. I might mention one later before the video ends. Again, it can apply to boys. A lot of these things can, but we're going to focus on girls, and I have so much to discuss. I'm literally excited about this subject, and I'm shocked at how excited I am. When I came up with it, I was like, and these thoughts came rolling through my head. I was like, yeah, talk about that. Tonight, it got real. I sat down in a quiet room, put my mind to it, thoughts started to flow, stream of consciousness. This is what results. This is my note page. I've just learned to shut up and write. I did that in about 25 minutes. To give it to you will take at least an hour, probably longer. We're going to talk about 10 things. How to raise an awesome daughter. And there's 100 things we could talk about. But to put it in something digestible video form, we got to kind of narrow it down. And if I thought longer about these, maybe I would change the priorities, the numbers they came. And by the way, their order does not necessarily represent their priority. That's it. So I will try in the description beneath the video, after it's been out a while, if it has good support from you guys, the subscribers to TMP, I'll summarize it. And I'll just type it out maybe. And who knows, I'll try to get it to you, but I want you to watch this video. That's my product, a video. Watch it. Take notes as we go. I may do some banners too for you, because as we go over these 10 areas, we're going to hit some key subjects which I think are critical. Let me go over them real quick. Actually, I won't introduce them. I'm just going to introduce them as we go. Here we go. Number 1 way to create an awesome daughter is love your girls. Show affection to them. This is going to be hard for me not to get teary during this part because I believe so strongly in it as a parent. Also for little boys, also for little girls. And let's start with the obvious, but often overlooked part. And I'm talking physical affection for your children. holding them, kissing them, rubbing their back, scratching them. That's important. We're human beings. We need physical touch. Granted, we all have a certain scale of what kind of physical touch we like and what kind of physical touch really annoys us. For instance, my wife, Mrs. Nutnfancy, and to some degree myself, we're not really touchy people. Okay, we're not, I wouldn't say non-affectionate, because we are with each other, but, you know, for people to come up that we don't know and they start giving me a back rub, I'm like, nah, don't touch me. I don't like it. We can't be that way with our little children. We especially can't be that way with little girls. Dads, you too. When you give honest, genuine, wholesome physical affection to your children, it sends a message of acceptance and love to them. And later in life, they won't make bad decisions trying to make up for that lack of physical affection. You know where I'm going? Especially with little girls who become young women, who become whoever, moms, wives. This is where it starts. So take your little girls in your arms, give them piggyback rides, tickle them, tickling games, hug them, kiss them, bring them in. It's wholesome, and it fills a void that they have. There's a lot of things we can do non-verbally with our children which are so important, that are so neglected in society. That's one of them. Affection. I'm going to go back to my dog, Allie the mountain dog, who now is getting on in years. She's still healthy, doing great. Man, do we love our dog. She is so sweet. One of the things I did when I got Allie, and I think I may have told you guys this, maybe I didn't, and there's a lot of parallels between raising good animals and raising children, because affection and love are the same things. When I got Allie, I kept her with me every day for 2 weeks. I literally did not let her out of my sight. I didn't let her out of my hold. When I ran errands to the store, she sat in my lap. When I walked around the house, she was right here, cradled by me the whole time. Granted, at times I'd have to put her down and do whatever chore or task I was doing, but pretty much she was with me for those 2 weeks solid. She bonded with me. She learned my voice. She learned how I smell. To this day, on camera, you see that bond that Allie has with me. She knows that I am her biggest advocate in life. Okay, and this is hard for me because I love my dog and my children so much. But that message is communicated to her non-verbally. By that holding, that loving, that time being spent with her. That's a foundation of everything else I'm going to do with that dog. Discipline, training, commands, everything. They have to know that you love them and that you accept them. Now, we're all humans. We make a lot of mistakes. Raise your hand if you make tons of mistakes. I do. As parents, I do. Have, will. But I have, and this is what I want you to have, moms and dads, especially dads, is to have a game plan. And if you haven't been great at this, then make small steps to be better at it. Okay, just progress and try to get better at it. Affection with your little girls. It's a life bond, and that nonverbal is huge. This process also, I'm talking about love your girls, show them affection, isn't all about always holding them, but just talking with them, spending time with them, having long talks about everything. About the things we're going to talk in this video. Just sit down and talk. Maybe they're going to sleep that night. Dad rolls in, says, hey, let's talk. You run the conversation, and maybe it goes from there. Maybe she doesn't want to talk. Be sensitive to that, but at least you're trying. Communication, talking, spending quality time without anything else diverting your attention, like text rolling through the phones, video games, movies, just you and her talking. I feel too with my children, and this is applicable to raising daughters as well, is I'm their dad, disciplinarian, I teach them these things, but I'm also their friend. And sometimes you can be their best friend in life. Moms too. But again, my focus is on dads. Moms are awesome, same thing, but I'm focusing on dads. Be their friend. Sometimes that means you have to listen and withhold your judgments. And that's a hard thing to do as a dad, because you may find, especially as she gets older, she's doing things that you don't approve of, you don't like, and yet somehow you're going to have to pick your way through that minefield that is parenting and the relationship with your daughter, and maintain your friendship and always maintain your love for your daughter. That's number one. Love your girls, show affection, especially physical, honest, wholesome affection for her. Got to move on. Number two. And I totally love this next point. It might be the most critical thing you do as a dad to influence your daughter. Here it comes. Number two. Ready? Model what it means to her to be a man. There it is. It's kind of heavy, right? She looks to you as her role model for all men. You know, when she grows up, she starts looking for a boyfriend, a husband. Who do you think she's going to look to as an example? You. Hopefully you're a part of her life. Hopefully you're giving her a quality example of being an honorable man, a good man. Let me ask you some questions. And by the way, I've asked myself these questions, looking in the mirror, taking stock of who I am as a man. We should all do that, especially as dads. If you have this little girl, you need to take stock. If you're weak in any of these areas, change, improve, repent, become better. For instance, are you lazy or industrious? Do you sit around watching television, doing nothing, complaining, or are you busy doing this? With life balance, so it's not all work, you're spending time with your family, I think you get the point. Are you honest, or do you lie about everything? And by the way, your children can see right through that. Do you make excuses in life, or do you own your mistakes? Hey, I didn't get this promotion at work because so-and-so hates my guts, I hate it. And here's your little girl listening to that. Hey man, life sucks because everyone's always against us. That's a message you're sending right there, Dad. Are you abusive or loving with your family? And I'm talking verbal abuse or physically abusive. Both of which have no part in a loving family. And both of which can be caustic and damaging to your little girl. And she will struggle with that for the rest of her life. And you have just burdened her with a huge emotional price tag. Hopefully she can overcome it. It's never too late to change. But be loving. We just talked about that in point number one, right? Are you scared or are you brave in life? And I'm not just talking about the obvious ways. Okay, and I hope to model some of that in a little play scenario we'll do later in the vid series. But I'm talking about in everything. With sickness, health concerns, big scary changes in life, loss of a job. Who does your little girl look to for leadership? Her friend down the street? She looks to you, Dad. Well, how's Dad handling this? It's kind of like a captain of a ship. If the captain of the ship is in the wheelhouse, he's like, oh my gosh, we're going to die. I've never seen a storm like this. Oh my gosh, and he's carrying on and crying. What do you think the rest of the crew is going to be doing? What kind of leadership is that? Yeah, they'll be going, oh my gosh, we are going to die. They look to you for leadership. Provide calm, reassuring leadership. Be brave. In life's challenges, you're going to have lots. Everybody does. She'll look to you. She'll draw from your sense of bravery, and she'll go, okay, this is how I'm supposed to handle it in life. This is the kind of guy I want to marry later in life. Someone like this. Brave. Good. Next question. Are you crass? Do you say inappropriate things about girls, women, or are you respectful to women? And the best way you model that is how you interact with your girlfriend or your wife. Because she's looking right at that. She's looking at how that relationship goes. What does he say to mom? How does he treat her? Does he treat her well, with respect, or is he calling her names, getting angry, slapping her around? All the stuff we talked about. You know, model to her what it's like to be a good man. If you're not there, change. Or here's another question. Are you tough or are you a wimp? What do you mean? Well, let's say you hit your hammer in the shop. while you're doing a project. Hopefully you're down there doing projects. We'll talk about that. Oh my gosh, my hand hurts so bad. I'm done for the day. Or you just suck it up. That sucks. Hey, hand me the wrench. Hand me the crowbar. She's sitting there watching. She goes, Dad's a tough guy. I like that. She's learning from you, Dad. Do you have a good sense of humor, or are you uptight and unfun? Do you laugh things off? That's what we do in our family. We're laughing all the time. We make fun of things. It's funny. It's a great way to cope in life. You should model a good sense of humor to your daughter. She'll look for a guy who's funny as well. In fact, if you watch those dating shows, the girls always mention, hey, the guy's, he's kind of average looking, but man, he's funny. A funny guy attracts girls, okay? And probably the girls who are attracted to that had a dad who was funny. See? Circle of life right there in one sentence. Are you a provider to your family, to your little girl, or are you a slacker? Hard question. One of our jobs as dads is to provide the necessities of life. Electricity, water, food, transportation, school supplies, education. That's our job, and it rests right on these shoulders. Moms can help, but the way I look at it and the way our value system is, and I don't apologize for it at all, is that it's primarily my job. If you don't think you can do it, don't get married, don't have kids. How good would the world be if everyone did that? Hey, I can't provide for my own children, I'm not going to have children. Imagine that. It's not society's job to take care of your children. It's your job. You brought them into the world, feed them, clothe them, take care of them, love them. She'll look at how you model this. Do you provide or do you not provide? Just saying. The relationship with your wife is key. What it means to be a man. Model it well. I got to move on. And could this not be a whole video right there? Totally could. Point 3. Expose your daughter to hardship. Don't be afraid to do that. Yes, little girls are special. They should be mostly treated like little girls. Sometimes delicately. But as a good dad, you need to balance her life's understanding out. And the way we want to do that as dads is to expose her to hardship. For instance, let's say we go backpacking, hiking with our little girl. It starts to rain. It gets very cold. She's shivering. You as a dad didn't prepare properly. You didn't bring rain gear. She's cold. Is that the end of the world that she has that experience? No. It's a good thing. Suffering teaches us things. It teaches us, number one, to be appreciative of the good times. When we're warm, when we're dry, when we're well fed, we should be sitting there going, wow, this rocks. I'm so glad to have these things. Because you know how many people in the world don't have those things? Your little girl needs to understand that. She needs to understand the world, by the way. Here's how it is in India, for instance. This is how people live in Peru. This is how people live in Afghanistan. This is how people live in Europe. They should be well versed in the world. In some respect, that will teach them about hardship, because they understand that not everybody lives as opulently as we do here in America. Hardship is good, man. Cold, wet, tired is good. Sports are good for some girls. Now, I say some because there's different personalities. Your little girl may have a personality where she is not an athlete. She hates sports, and forcing her to go into it is counterproductive. But be in tune with her personality, with perhaps the opportunity for sports for your little girl. Playing soccer, for instance. It teaches so many things. Losing, for instance. Hey, we lost that game like by 40 points. We suck. It's a good life lesson. Hopefully she has a good coach. She has a good team. They can rebound. They can win after that. And it builds that self-confidence that comes with working on a team. Sacrificing self for the team. These are all good concepts. And I'm going to put them under the umbrella of teaching your daughter hardship. Playing sports is cool. Balance that out, though, because I know some families, that's all they do is sports. And they pursue it to such a level that they rob the childhood of the little girl and of the little boy. And they don't really have a life. They can't go camping. They can't go shooting 22s. Why? Because they have practice to go to. They have cheer to go to. And it kind of robs them of a real childhood. So you as mom and dad, especially dad, in this video only, think about it. Put some thought into it. Challenge her capabilities, whatever they are. We're talking about hardship. the ability to buck up under pressure. Challenge them, to say, hey, you're not comfortable doing this, but I want you to do it. For instance, maybe she has a phobia about water. You could start off small, walking on the beach, walking across bridges, going swimming in kiddie pools, overcoming that phobia with exposure, right? Let me give you an example from my son. I'll go back to TD, Tactical Doodle. I don't know if you know this, but he is a huge mountain biker. Loves it. Granted, we have motorcycles, and so he's a busy student, all that stuff. Dating. So he's not mountain biking as much as he used to, but he loves it. Great mountain biker. He smokes me when we go out. Really fast. His legs are like that big around. They're like freaking oaks. He wasn't always that way, though. And if I take you back to when he was like 8 years old, it was quite the opposite. He hated bicycling. He hated going out on trails. And we lived in Spokane, Washington at the time. And I basically had to force him to go. I challenged him. And there was this one hill we used to go on this trail. And it was a big fight. I was like, hey, I want you to go up the hill and you're going to go down it. No way, I'm terrified. I can't. And he was crying and carrying on. But I persevered. I was like, no, you're going. Why? Because I knew my kid. I knew that he could do it. I knew it was not an unreasonable request. I knew it would give him, this is really important, self-confidence by overcoming that obstacle. Because you know what? Life is going to throw a ton of obstacles to your children. And if they've never been exposed to them, they've never had a chance to be scared, to think they're going to fail, then how do you think they're going to do in real life? Dad, it's your job to expose them to that. That was a small thing. I saw it. I was like, that's a great teaching opportunity. I'm not backing down. And I didn't. And we attacked that hill over a series of multiple rides that summer. He got good at it, better at it, and little by little, he got confident in it. And I'll tell you, he wasn't like, oh, I want to go down that hill. It never was like that summer. But later in life, slowly, he began to see the benefit of it. And it really didn't come back until he became a teenager. Seriously, it took that long. And then all of a sudden, he starts taking up mountain biking. I was like, I didn't know you liked biking that much. He's like, yeah, I kind of like it. You remember that time you took me in Spokane? And I was like, as a dad, aha! Challenge her capabilities. Also, the thing I've done with my kids is I force them to run on the dang treadmill. I think it's an important thing to teach your kids to take care of their bodies, to be physically fit their whole life. If you're talking about daughters, that's a good thing, girl who's attractive, takes care of herself, guess what? They're going to attract, guys, good guys. And this is just something wholesome. It's a fact. But more importantly, they're able to function in life. We're not perfect in this, but I will tell you this. In the Nut and Fancy clan, we work out our treadmill like 4 times a day. Not me all the time. I'm pretty sporadic these days. Maybe if I'm lucky, twice a week. But my kids, they are, well, not so much Last Suspect. He hates it. But Tactical Doodle, all the time. Miss Nut and Fancy, all the time. That's an important thing to pass on to your children. And yes, it teaches overcoming hardship. Because running for multiple miles for half hour without stopping, it's not easy. But it teaches dedication. And in the long run, you get physical fitness out of it too. All right? What we're really doing under this hardship thing is we're teaching non-entitlement too. If your little girl who becomes a young woman has a sense of entitlement, that's a bad thing. What do I mean by that? The world owes me everything. I'm special. I don't need to work in life. Everybody should give me everything because I'm cute, I'm good looking, I'm popular. You know what I'm talking about? Incidentally, this is what Tactical Doodle told me about the dates he's gone on. He's like, these girls are so entitled. They don't know how to work. They just think the world revolves around them. I'm on a date. They're in their phone texting, ignoring me. Like that. Are you raising a girl like that? If so, I don't know. Maybe she'll find a guy that really gets her and likes it. But for my kids, they don't like it. Teach her hard work too. Workers are few. Go look at that philosophy video. The amount of people that really know how to buckle down and be good, reliable, hard workers are very few. Maybe 5% of the total workforce. They're valuable. They command salaries. They get quick promotions. Why? Because there's so few. Teach your girl that process. Quick example. I know a friend and his daughter is quite entitled. And from what I know, it's not his fault because from what I know, which isn't a ton, I think he's a good dad. And yet the personality of this teenage girl is such that she thinks the world owes her everything. Dad says, you know what? You're going to go work at a quick food place starting next week. And he did it. He forced her to go. And she's there like, ooh, I got to work here with these people? Oh, ugh. And he's sticking to his guns. Mom, I don't know where she factors in. He is married. But good for him, because she's going to learn a lot of things about that. And maybe in some small way, it will strip off that sense of entitlement that she's better than everybody else by being part of a workforce, by doing menial tasks. I've done it with my kids. You know, last suspect, my youngest, worked at Smith's grocery store. He was a hard worker. He's cleaning up toilets, cleaning out garbage and people's bags of crap from the bushes while all the other kids are in the break room skipping out on work. Bosses loved him. And I'll tell you what, he came home and goes, Dad, you're right. People don't know how to work. I'm like, ta-da! My wife, Mrs. Nutnfancy, speaking of the girl that I sought out, had this quality. The sense of non-entitlement, a sense of gratitude, graciousness, humility. You know what she did when she was a teenager? On up until I think she was like probably late teens. She was a maid at a hotel. You want to talk about a gross job and what you see of humanity? Talk to any maid. What you find in the rooms, the toilets overflowing, the rags you find, you can imagine. And that's what Mrs. Nutfancy did. And she liked the job, and I thought that was awesome. It was kind of like a check mark. It's like, knows how to work, non-entitled. Awesome. Awesome. How's your girl doing? Teach her. Just because she's a girl doesn't mean she can't work, doesn't mean she can't withstand hardships. Quite the opposite. If you shelter her too much, you're doing her a huge disservice, mom, and especially dad. Yeah. I'm going to press on. Number 4. Man, I love this one too. They're all good points, I think. Trust her with dangerous things. Your little girl. Each child is different. If you watch my series, Children of the Gun, 2-part series, posted like, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I talk about firearms training with children. There's nothing in that video I would change. It's spot on. I talk about the levels of, the children as they progress, zygote to scout to Jedi. I still laugh when I think about those names I gave them. Your little girl should be part of that process. Hey, we're going to teach little Billy how to shoot, but little Cynthia over here, she's a little girl, she's not learning how to shoot. What? Hey, the coolest girls I ever found when I was dating personally were the girls who came from families where their dads were shooters. That was a huge thing. They were usually more down to earth. They were usually non-entitled. They liked the gun thing. And how many friends do you have who are married to girls that hate guns? And it is a big issue in that family. Yeah, like that. Now, I'm not going to get sidetracked on the gun issue, but it's a good example of how we can teach our children, our little girls, to be competent and safe with what is perceived to be a dangerous thing. Teach her to shoot a .22. Take that .22 rifle out, that .22 pistol, of which I've reviewed many and recommended them for exactly this POU, and have her shoot. She'll love it. She might suck at first, but again, apply those principles, and children with a gun progress with her so she gets to be a competent shooter. What results in the process? Well, she can shoot a bad guy, Nutnfancy. Yes, we may talk about that. But more importantly, she has a sense of self-esteem. And that's what we want to do as good parents. We want to give them not a sense of entitlement, but a sense that they can overcome life's challenges and a sense of self-esteem. That way, when they come against these things, they'll go, you know what? This looks really overwhelming to me, but I did that, and it scared me at the time, and I was able to get good at it, like shooting. I think this may be the same thing. You give them a toolkit for life. Shooting's a part of that. Also, teach them to ride vehicles. Some of the coolest girls I dated, and to this day that I run into for my boys, come from families that ride quads, motorcycles, mountain bike, road bikes, scooters, some type of conveyance other than an automobile. Maybe even tractors. I dated this girl when I was like 19, and man, she was cool. Her name, I'm trying to remember. I kind of forget, actually. But I remember what she looked like. She was cute. And little blonde girl. And man, was she a firecracker. She came from a family of quads, three-wheelers, and motorcycles. And we went on some dates, and I just really got along with her. She was down to earth. She was fun. She was competent in riding. She was kicking my butt. We'd go down a dirt road, and she's on a three-wheeler, just fishtailing it, going up the hill. I'm like, that girl freaking rocks. How many girls nowadays do that? Okay, and what do we get in the process? Well, they learn how to operate dangerous things, and all these other cool qualities cascade down with this process. Down to earth, non-entitlement stuff I've talked about. Dangerous things, man. How about knives? Teach her how to use knives. Carry a knife, an EDC blade. Absolutely normal in some circumstances. Going to school? Probably not, because of the protectionist culture. I think you know where I'm going with this. But maybe during the summertime, hey, here's your little SOG Flash 1. You're going to integrate that as your EDC blade. Teach her safety on how to use the knife. Expose her to that. Set standards of safe handling. This is how you have to do it. Okay? And if she doesn't do it, take it away for a week. That's what my dad did. Little by little, I learned, and I became safe and better and more competent. You know, teach her shop tools. How's a table saw work? You know, have a mini shop class. Do a mini project with her. You know what? We're going to build a birdhouse, for instance. How cool would that be? Hey, birdhouse, what do you mean? Yeah, we're going to, those wrens or the bluebirds we have in the backyard, we're going to build a house. And in order to do this, we're going to need these tools. And I'm going to teach you how to use all these tools. Have her do as much work as possible. She will be so happy that you're spending time with her. She should be. And she'll be happy with the outcome. And in the process, she's going to learn those shop tools. They should. Teach her electrical wiring. If there's a wiring project, bring your child into it. Say, hey, this is how you do it. Hey, Nut Fancy, I don't know how to wire myself. How am I going to teach my kid? You can read a book, Dad. Reading still works. There's lots of online resources. You can find out how to do anything by just looking in YouTube, for instance. Kind of like parenting, kind of like with this video. Or a wiring project. Learn it yourself. Teach your daughter. Bond with her that way. How about driving? Driving's huge for girls. In other words, teaching them to drive competently with self-confidence and to prioritize. I can make a whole video on this. Teach your daughters young. Appropriate to her personality, appropriate to her sense of responsibility at her age. Okay, and both my boys, I'll tell you this, were difficult to teach how to drive. They sucked. Last Suspect was so bad. Lots of family fights, no self-confidence. Oh my gosh, Mom gave up. Mrs. Nutnfancy tried to teach him. She's like, I'm out. This is not working. Totally fight with him. He sucked. He did this. Almost got us killed. You're taking over. I went out with him. Yeah, we had some moments together. I was so pissed because he wasn't doing the things I was telling him. We teach our kids, by the way, on a manual shifting automobile. I think everyone should, but that's just us. That's another life skill, dangerous thing, skill set. How many kids do it these days? Pretty much none. Oh, I learned on an auto. Not my kids. They learn on a manual stick shift. Anyone can drive an auto, right? Teaching a stick shift is a skill set. I believe in it. Always will. There you go. It builds self-esteem. Like my kid, Last Suspect, when he goes to school, now he's a really good driver. He's safe. He's really excellent at a manual transmission car. He sits around, talks to his kid or his friends about driving, and they're like, yeah, we know. Stick shift, what's that? Gives him some self-esteem. It's kind of some cool points for him. Yeah, dangerous things. I have a whole video out on it. I totally believe it's appropriate for your little girl. For all the reasons noted. Next one, number 5. This is where Dad, the disciplinarian, has to come into his own and help his little girl. Very critical. Set and enforce ground rules. Mom, you're part of this process too. And in some households, the mom is a disciplinarian, not the dad. Totally normal. It just depends on your family. Maybe you don't have a mom or dad. Maybe it's the grandparent. Maybe it's the guardian. But someone has to set and enforce rules consistently with the little girl. This is why this is so important. Because life is a minefield for your little girl. I think you know what I'm talking about. For instance, and we'll start off with something that seems innocuous, but I don't think it is. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, but I will not back down from this. I think social media can be a pitfall for both boys and girls, but especially girls. It allows them to not engage in real life. It allows them to escape, in some ways, consequences of real life, and they're always in the phone. They're always texting. They're always online doing this. They're always online. They're ignoring their parents. They're ignoring their dad, their mom, maybe not their friends because they're online with them. And in that process, they can be exposed, you guessed it, predators. And we'll talk about this in another point, but I'll leave it at that. So as dad, you should set some ground rules of how we're going to use the internet, social media, phones in this family, especially with girls. Talk to your wife, set some ground rules. I think this generation, which is always entertained online, in their phones, televisions, granted I had some of that too growing up, but it is kind of out of control these days. I think they lose some of life's most important lessons, don't you? Some of which we've talked about already. How to handle hardship, accountability, non-sense of entitlement, being able to occupy yourself without an electronic device. That's a skill these days. Not a lot of kids know how to do this, by the way. Especially girls. You take away their phone and they're like, oh, life comes to a screeching halt. They have no idea what to do with themselves. Set and enforce some ground rules appropriate for your child, for your household. Part of this too is teaching the golden rule. Going back to social media. Hey, I'm going to post this mean comment to this person because she made me mad. That's a good opportunity for dad to roll in and go, hey, would you like that comment posted to your Facebook page about you? Make her think about it. So you can actually use that social media interaction to teach more important life lessons. The golden rule, in my opinion, is huge. Treat others the way you would want to be treated, whether you're anonymous online or whether you're face-to-face with another human being. And by the way, going back to how to be a man, you'll model this. Do you treat people the way you want to be treated? Because she'll be watching. If you don't, she'll suffer because of it. How about this? Setting and enforcing rules, sex, and a value system. Told you we're going to talk frankly. This has to be discussed sooner or later, preferably sooner with your daughter. Sexual relations, when's it appropriate? I'm not going to push my value system on you, but I think you should have a value system, especially when it comes to this. What time is appropriate for sex? Do we wait to marriage? Do we not wait to marriage? Dad should talk about these things. Don't be afraid. She's already hearing these on social media, in school. And I'm talking early. You wouldn't believe how early. First grade? Yeah. Never too early. It's much better for mom and dad to have this wholesome discussion about sexual intercourse, about this, about that. Yes, honestly with your daughter. And talk like you're talking about whatever. Going mountain biking. Yeah, sexual intercourse, whatever. Be real frank about it. Be upfront. Don't make it a taboo, because that way she will feel comfortable talking to you when these come upon her. She'll go, well, we talk about our family. We're open about it. And by the way, we have been that way with the boys completely. To like a degree that makes them uncomfortable. Oh, dad with the sex talk. Here he comes again. And I use a good sense of humor about it too. And it's worked. So far, so good. Set curfews for your kids. When is it appropriate to come home? For your daughters, I'm talking. How late can they stay out? Do you give them chores? Talking about setting and enforcing ground rules. Do they help out at the house, or is it okay for them not to help at all? That mom and dad do all the work, and she's so precious, she's not going to help out. That kind of goes back to workers are few, the hardship. She should have chores. There's a dog in the backyard. Have her go pick up the poop. That's what Last Suspect does. That's his job. He's a pooper picker-upper. And it's good for him, Vehicle use. Hey, you're going to use our car when she becomes a teenager? These are the rules of using the car. You pay for the gas. Maybe you pay for the insurance. You don't wreck the car. You don't drive and text at the same time, ever. You don't drive with other friends until I say you can drive with other friends. And you keep my car clean. And by the way, speaking of which, do you know that's a good snapshot of how the girl's going to keep her house, guys? Go to her car the girl you're dating as a teenager, and if her car is thrashed, it has like fries, burger wrappers, garbage, it's unvacuumed, you're probably looking at how your house is going to be. Speaking from experience. Mrs. Nut and Fancy, I looked at her car when we were dating. It was spotless. Inside and out. Guess what? Our house, same way. Spotless. Go to her room. If her room's a wreck, disarray, there's clothes thrown everywhere. Dudes, you're looking at your house in the future. And if you're okay with that, I say rock on. I'm just saying. You know, that's how your house is going to be. Set and enforce ground rules. Be kind. How do you interact with boys? What kind of boys should you look for? You know, you'll talk about this a lot, mom and dad, especially dad. But she's actually going to look, again, to your example as a man. And if you have a good relationship with her and she doesn't hate you, granted that will come sooner or later in this process of parenting, it always does. But she'll grow up, she'll go, oh, dad was pretty awesome actually. She's probably going to look for someone just like you. Same sense of humor, you know, same capabilities, mechanical. He's not a slacker, he works hard in life. That's probably who she's going to look for. Okay? Where am I at time-wise? You know what? I'm going to do a part 2. There you go. Part 2 of the awesome daughter to follow. There's just too much to talk about to put it in one video without it being extraordinarily long. This is a life philosophy video. TMP, come back for part 2. It's at the top. Just click on that link. Thank you for your support. I wish you all the best in this process. You'll make the world a better place.